All right, just making a quick video. This is a Jackery 1500, and I made a few videos on this unit already, but just to recap, I really like this unit because it has some specs that make it like a good unit to have. Just like if you're just going to have like one unit, it kind of covers all your bases, right? Like it's got a big enough inverter, 1800 watt hours. You can pretty much plug almost anything into it, right? It's got this dual input solar charger. And, I really like this because it does give you a decent amount of solar. Like this thing doesn't have amazing solar specs, right? But it gives you a decent amount of solar. And you can also, it adds some flexibility, right? Like you can charge from two different sources at the same time. And then the battery capacity, right? Like 1500 watt hours, like that's a pretty good amount of battery capacity. And especially when you combine all of that with the size and weight, right? So this thing's only about 35 pounds. You can actually pick this thing up, move it around without struggling too much, right? Like if you need to lift it or move it around, it's not a bad unit to have, right? So, but it's not all good news. So I wanted to just talk about this real quick. Is the biggest problem I have with this unit is just the fan noise, right? So with the inverter, and if you don't want to watch this entire video, I would just say if you're concerned about fan noise and you're looking at a Jackery or one of these larger units. Look at the Jackery Pro models, either the 1000 Pro, which is a little bit smaller than this, or the 2000 Pro, which is a little bit larger. They've actually addressed the everything I'm going to talk about in this video, basically, but the issues with the fan noise. They've actually addressed that, and maybe it's almost because the fan noise was so ridiculous on this unit. It was so bad that maybe they got so many complaints, and that's why they actually made those units, the 1000 Pro and the 2000 Pro, very quiet, right? So if that's something you're concerned with, just go look at those units, right? Stop watching, go buy one of those, right? So, but yeah, let's just cover this real quick. So I've actually got the inverter on. It's not powering anything, but it is on, right? So it is using some power, and it is producing a little bit of heat, right? And, before I actually talk about all the negatives with the fans and the cooling on this unit, I should say that this unit does a very good job of keeping this unit cool, right? So lithium batteries, you want to make sure that everything stays cool, right? Because heat is actually what accelerates your battery's degradation and reducing the life cycles you get, right? So heat is one of the main factors on that, right? So you definitely want something that's going to be able to keep it cool. And as you can see, like the vents they have on this thing they run, it's almost the entire side of the unit, right? So and then they have two large fans, like one here on both sides, and they're kind of placed towards the middle of the unit, right? They're not just all the way up at the top where like all the heat sinks are. Like it actually helps provide some airflow throughout the entire unit, including the batteries, which are actually down at the bottom here, right? So it does a good job in keeping things cool, and it's definitely gonna help keep the battery in good condition and healthy for a long time, right? So but the bad news, let's just get into it, right? So I'm just gonna start plugging in a few things here, and so we're at 0 watts. Obviously, like I said in some of my other videos, the inverter is using some power, and actually when the inverter is just on and there's nothing plugged into it, these two fans are actually running at a very, very low speed, but they are moving some air through the unit, right? Just because that inverter will start to produce some heat, just being on, and you almost can't even hear it. In fact, it's almost impossible to hear it, even if you put your ear up to it. Like they run at a very, very low speed, so things start out good, right? Like that's just a really good idea. All right, so I've just plugged in the Jackery 240 I've got over here, and this thing is just drawing about 40 watts as it charges. It charges very slow. But yeah, no change with the fans. So far, so good on really low loads. There's no change. Those fans are just continuing to run at that very low speed that you can't even notice, right? But if I actually plug in my Blue Eddy here, which is going to charge around 80 watts, so now we're going to be like just a little over 100. This is still like a low rate, right? Especially for a large unit like this with an 1800 watt inverter. But yeah, check out this noise. it basically comes on like almost like a full speed. Just charging a little over 100 watts out of this inverter, right? So yeah, this is like extremely annoying and unnecessary. And something I should mention too is that just make sure there's a little bit of space here. Is that this is it's winter here, right? I mean, this is like it's only like 65 degrees in here, and so this has like nothing to do with temperature, right? Like just as soon as it got even just a moderately small load on it, these fans are just going crazy, right? So so yeah, just something to note with this unit if you're sensitive to noise about that or whatever. Look at the pro models, right? But otherwise, if you're using this outside or something most of the time, you're not going to even notice that noise, really, right? So in that case, this is a good deal and a nice unit to have. But if you're using it indoors, yeah, just look at the pro models, right? So yeah, hopefully someone finds this interesting or helpful, and